Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with TB Fork, and this is day 18 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be beef liver, and today is a legs and abs training routine. And the theme for today's workout is CRAC PNF stretching. So right now, I'm going to be demonstrating how to perform CRAC PNF stretching. Now let's get started. And while we are resting, let's discuss the theme of today's video, and that is going to be CRAC PNF stretching. First, let's explain what exactly CRAC PNF stretching is. It is very similar to contract relax or CR stretching. With contract relax, what happens is, let's say we're stretching the hamstring, you would stretch the area, and then what you would have them do is contract the muscle that you were stretching, and then on the exhale, when they relax, you would take them deeper into the stretch. With contract relax, antagonist contract, it's a little bit different. The way that it normally would work is you would take them into a stretch, you would have them contract the muscle that you are stretching, and then you will have them actively activate the antagonistic muscle. So if you are stretching the hip extensors, you would ask the patient to activate the hip flexors, and they would actively go into further hip flexion. Myself, when I perform this, I like to give a little bit of added assistance just to help further the stretch. But generally, that is the main difference between crack stretching and the regular contract relax PNF method. Now, as I stated earlier in the last video, with regard to crack stretching or any type of PNF stretching, a lot of times people are going to have a lot of impingements in the hip and they could end up guarding a lot. So one thing that would be beneficial to do is incorporate a little bit of circumduction prior to the treatment. The circumduction is going to help the production of synovial fluid buildup in the joint. And by building up the synovial fluid, that's going to help reduce friction in the joint, and it could remove any type of impingements that they may be experiencing. And it's going to make it a lot more comfortable. A couple of different options with regard to positioning. You could sit on the table. This is my preferred method. And then you could do some clockwise motions. And then after a few repetitions, go counterclockwise. If you prefer, you could also just stand to the side of the patient, place one hand at the distal femur, one hand at the calcaneus, and do the same thing. You could end up doing these circular motions in clockwise and then reverse the direction. And then if you wanted to get a little bit more advanced with the circumduction, we could get a little bit more creative and do some figure eights. If you wanted to do some figure eights, we could do the same thing. So we could place the calcaneus or the Achilles on our shoulder, and then we would go into medial rotation and adduction by crossing the midline. And then at the top of the figure eight, we would change into lateral rotation and abduction. Then we would start to come in, we would maintain the lateral rotation as we go into adduction, and then we would go into medial rotation right at the bottom of the eight and maintain that medial rotation as we start the following repetition. So this is what it would look like if we were doing it on an actual patient. And then once again, we could also do it with the standard hand position, one at the distal femur, one at the calcaneus, where we go into medial rotation and adduction. And then at the top of the eight, for this one, we really want to scour the hip. At the top of the eight, we're going to transition into lateral rotation and abduction. We're going to maintain the lateral rotation as we go into adduction. And then at the bottom of the eight, we're going to go into medial rotation as we go into abduction and maintain that medial rotation as we go into adduction. So this is what it would look like if we were performing it on an actual patient. And Johnny's right hip is okay, not quite as good as it was yesterday. I think he needs a little bit more circumduction. But our rest period is up. Time for set number 2. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.